Welcome back to ID Fitness Podcast. We're kicking off season 3 with a powerful and personal conversation. If you missed Ben's first episode from over a year and a half ago, go and check it out. It sets the stage for this one. But if you haven't, in part 1, Baird showed how he found purpose in coaching, the impacts of key mentorships, and importance of sleep, stress, and boundaries. He also opened up about overcoming codependency, family dysfunction, and insecurity through discipleship and marriage. A real story of transformation inside and out. Now in part 2, Ben is back. Originally from Memphis, he's been coaching over here for 5 years now. In this episode, we dive deeper into his evolving coaching philosophy, how his counseling changed his life, and the raw truth about mental health, family, faith, and marriage. We also get into leadership, where he learned from leading discipleship groups and what it means to step up as a husband and a man of faith. This one's honest, vulnerable, and powerful. This is season 3, episode 1. Let's get into it. We'll hit it with a banger. How did counseling go since the last time we talked? Because before we talked on your episode, what was it, 3?
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, when we were talking about all the stuff I'd done with my dad and everything, I had not gone to counseling just yet. Because I think we did it, if I remember correctly, in that summer of the podcast. And in that fall, I went into counseling, or I was talking about counseling, something like that.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And so then I went to counseling for about 4-6 months or so within that time frame. And then I think I stopped. When did I? Sometime last year, so in the fall, I think as well. Later, like in Christmas time or something like that.
Yeah, it was around Christmas.
Something around that time. Oh man, counseling. It was different. I had never, again, I've talked about this before, but I've never had a communications with someone like that in a deep, intimate level before, besides with you or discipleship with as well. But going to someone with a completely objective lens. He did not know me. He did not know my story, where I came from, and all that stuff. And so just telling him some of the struggles I've been going through, struggles I went with my dad, and just getting a full fresh take is like one of the few times I actually listened to someone. Because you, with around your friends and all that stuff, from my personal experience, you hear, you're like, oh yeah, maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do this. But hearing it from a complete stranger who is a professional telling you this, and that, it just really opened my eyes for me. And one of those things specifically was my dad. I wanted a relationship with my dad. I always did. And I didn't realize how bad I wanted it still until I went into counseling. It was something I needed to hear because I still had the chains in from my father, where he talked about how much less of a man I was, talked about how little belittling I was as a man, and how I would go to hell, or my marriage would be basically broken up if I didn't follow in his path. And those hooks were still in me for the longest time. But within those hooks, I still wanted a relationship with my dad in a weird, twisted way. I still wanted a father, an earthly father. So going into counseling with Pat Ward, it was really good because I went through all the things he said with me, with cursing, using scriptures against me and all that stuff. And it was tough, but going through that and seeing it through a more biblical and an objective lens instead of the lens of my father that he cast on me, it made more sense as to why he said some of those scriptures, but also where he also was just plain out wrong, which was help relieve some of those chains. But it then made me a lot sadder, circumstances with my dad. And so after a few weeks and months with Pat, I remember specifically, I told him everything that went on. I was honest, and I was not telling him everything, but I basically told Pat this. I said, all right, I said the things that I've already said before about him cursing me and everything like that. Pat knew that, but I went into further detail as to how during the time that my parents were divorcing, he had a prayer partner. My parents weren't fully separated yet, but they were a prayer partner, as my dad would say. And I remember meeting her coming in, and my dad said this woman's gonna help pray for our marriage, for your mom and I's marriage and all that stuff. And I was 12 at the time. And I thought, oh, that was great. That's cool, wonderful. Well, looking back on that, my dad was just not being faithful to my mom, even though they were divorcing, but they weren't fully separated yet. But the fact she came in that quickly before my parents were even fully separated tells me that it's probably was going on a long longer before divorce even came up. I remember telling Pat specifically as well that my dad was also financially abusing my mother as well, living rent-free in my home, our childhood home and everything back in Memphis for a couple of years or so. And how he was having his third wife, a prayer partner, who's now his third wife now, living there and everything. He didn't pay bills, just mooching, basically. I eventually also found out, and this was a conversation I had to have with my mom to give me some clarity, if my dad physically abused my mother as well. And I will say he did. It wasn't hitting per se, but it was like my mom wears glasses, and so he would squeeze her face with her glasses on. It would cut into her face. So that's when my parents finally officially divorced. And my mom initiated that divorce. I didn't know the divorce was biblical and all that stuff. It was because my mom was so scared for her at the time that they did that, or that she did that. On top of that, there's been some, and I probably shouldn't share with this, so I won't, but there was some really gruesome texts that my dad sent to my mom. Really just grotesque stuff that just really bizarre. Then after my parents officially got divorced and my dad got evicted out of our house, he then lived with my great-grandmother who's experiencing dementia at the time. And so he lived there rent-free for another couple of years until she passed away. And after I explained all that and told that to Pat, a gentleman who has been a pastor for 30 years and a counselor, he looked at me with his eyes wide open, dead in my face, and said, "Your dad, he's just a crazy narcissist. I mean, like there's just nothing, and you want a relationship with him? It's just like, there's nothing really there." And during all this time as well, my dad listens to the podcasts that we first did together. And so my dad sent an email specifically to CJ, because I have no contact with him anymore, about a 5-7 page long email with a 3.5 hour video attached to it as well. I read it, like skimmed through it, and it was just the same things my dad had said previously before, unfortunately. And then I shared that with Pat, and I also shared in the video. Pat read the entire email, which I was very surprised with, and he watched 5 minutes of that video, and he just said the 5 minutes of the video was just him just re-explaining everything he already said in the email he sent. So sharing everything with Pat with that email, and Pat was just like, he's not repenting. He's not changing. He's not showing that he's changing. If I wanted to have a relationship with my dad, I could seek another counselor that my dad and I have not met, to do that. But in all actuality, since my father's not repenting, he's not changing, there's nothing really I can do, or that we can do. And that broke my heart. It still sucks. It still hurts. Because I love my father, and I miss him deeply. And the last time I spoke with my dad was when I was 18. I'm 27 now, so it's almost been 10 years. And since that was the last time I spoke with him, in that time, he has not changed at all, which is even more disheartening, because I've been praying for him. I've been wanting him to repent. And even if he does repent, I know our relationship may not be back to the way I want it to be, or I thought it would be. But after Pat told me that, it really crushed my heart, because I, again, wanted a relationship with my dad. So I mourned my dad a second time. I mourned him the first time about almost 10 years ago when I officially broke it up with him. And then I mourned it again because it was finally time to let him like realize that I want to have a earthly father-son relationship the way that I wanted to. Even if my dad repents, it's going to be pretty superficial. And so with that, I kind of had to turn and look around like, well, where is a role model that I can follow and look up to? And at the end of the day, it was just God.
Mm.
As incredible and as wonderful as it's been, and I'm thankful for that, I still long for that earthly father relationship. So that's something I think it'll just be something in my heart that I'll have to deal with till the day I die. I am surrounded by wonderful men who have poured into me and helped me so much, but it will never be the relationship I had hoped and wanted for. And on top of that too, it has also helped me realize that I don't need to be seeking that out anymore, because I'll just be disappointed. And two, there's no one else here that could fill that role besides my own dad. So to put that pressure upon other men has kind of helped me not idolize them as well too, which was an interesting thing to come to realize as well. So that was the gist of my counseling in regards to my father. There was another part of it too where I was a habitual liar. I lied about everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I lied at work. I lied with my stewardships I need to take care of. I lied with my wife. I lied to myself, anyone and everyone, because I wanted to be in this world that everything seemed fine or okay, or the things that I was feeling were not actually it, even though they were legitimate feelings. And so I would lie kind of where I'd have lived in this own facade of mine, but I would also have anxiety about certain things. And so in order to, instead of tackling that anxiety and taking care of what I need to do, I would just lie about those things so I could just feel good and just go back into being passive and isolated. And that's gotten to me in a lot of serious trouble.
Did you I kind of want to backpedal just a little bit.
Yes.
You mentioned that your parents were divorced, but they weren't separated. Did you mean to flip those?
Yes.
Okay.
So yeah,
they were separated, not living with each other.
Correct.
I'm just trying to get this right.
Mm-hmm.
And but the divorce was still not finalized, and yet your dad had that prayer partner. Is that what I'm hearing?
Correct. Yep. They were not fully They were
not divorced.
They were not divorced. Yeah, they were in separate households, but they were not divorced yet.
Okay.
Yep. And that was a pretty long battle for that, because with financial stuff, money, my dad wanted the home and all that stuff, in which my mom was like, we can't. There's so much bills on the house and everything. My mom was in pretty severe debt because of during that time period, but my dad wouldn't pay for the house or anything. Like my grandfather, my mom's dad, tried to help my dad out tremendously as well, give him time and loans and all that stuff. But again, my dad it just gave him longer time to live there for free. And so it wasn't until we had to go to court and everything that they eventually evicted my father out of that house.
So the court system had to go in to get him out of the house. He wouldn't willingly leave himself.
Well, yes. So not that extreme. So they had to go to court to tell you need to leave by this day.
Okay.
So it was that. And so he did leave at that day. Yeah.
So they had to give him a deadline.
To leave. Yeah. To leave. Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
So basically waited to get to the point. Get a deadline from the court, and then once he got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I remember that day. Lots of yard sales, lots of moving, lots of packing stuff and going.
So you remember that visually, what that?
Yeah, I remember that weekend. A friend of mine had came to help us with the yard sale and everything, and it was really just kind of just selling whatever. And I don't know all the stuff in there that was what was my dad's, what was my mom's, but a lot of it was just trying to sell ASAP. So I wouldn't be surprised if my dad maybe sold some of the stuff that was my mom's. But I remember that. And then I remember going out to multiple places around Memphis, Oxford, and Hernando, finding storage units so that he could store about 5 storage units worth of stuff. And then after that, I remember that transition going from my childhood home to my great grandmother's place as well. And I remember.
So when your mom, when they separated and the divorce wasn't finalized,
Yep.
where did your mom go when she was separated from him?
So my mom lived here in Oxford at the Links for a long period of time. So before my mom and dad separated, they both moved to Oxford together, and we all lived at the Links. The reason being for this is because my mom needed better work, because she was working 12 hours a day and it was just killing her.
Yeah.
And so my dad was all for that, and which he was. And then eventually he wanted to go back up to Memphis, which in my opinion, I believe the reason why he wanted to do that is because my mom was the breadwinner, the primary breadwinner.
So wait, your dad came to live down here at the Links?
Yes. Yeah, while we still had a home in Memphis. Yep.
And that's when they still were trying to separate?
They were still together, and I think it was like maybe a couple months, about 6 months, 8 months or so is when they eventually separated. My dad was just kind of like, I'm going back up to Memphis. I'm going to live in the home that we have and all that stuff.
Got it.
And so that's when they started separating and all that stuff. And I don't know what happened during that time period where my mom started getting physically abused.
Yeah.
As well.
So during that time period.
During that time period, yeah. I remember moving to Oxford and everything. My dad was with us. We were living at the Links and everything. And then that's when it got all awkward. And then my dad started going back up to Memphis. And then my mom would stay here. And then my brother and I stayed here in Oxford, going to school here and everything while my dad was in Memphis. And then somewhere in that time frame is when it started becoming more serious in regards to separation. And that's when my brother and I would go up to Memphis on the weekends and then come here to stay with my mom in Oxford during the week because we had school here and everything.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I remember when you were really struggling with just being honest, not only towards yourself, towards your wife, towards your friends, towards work and everything. That's when me and you got to a sticking point in our relationship
Yep.
where we're like, all right, well, here's the deal. You either go get to counseling, because already in the back of my head, I'm like, he's got some unrevealed trauma that he needs to deal with,
Yep.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
whether that's getting closer to the Lord or figuring out why potentially he's lying, because there's always something that's traveling to the core of that.
Yeah.
The lying is a symptom of a much deeper problem. Obviously, it's sin and pride, but
Mm-hmm.
there's still channels along the way to potentially attack. And so I remember me and you said, I was like, you either go to counseling or you're done. Like,
Yep.
I just can't do this anymore. It's crazy because me and Ben are in a discipleship group together, and friends, like, I was like, I still love you, but I can't keep doing this.
Yeah.
Because the business was already not struggling, but it wasn't doing as well.
Yes.
We were still technically in the green, but it was kind of like I was working by myself.
Yeah.
And so I just couldn't watch it anymore. And so like me and Ben had to have a deep conversation. And then that's when I reached out to one of my mentors. Was like, hey, is there anybody in Oxford that you trust who has a biblical worldview
Yep.
of counseling that Ben could choose from? And he sent me like 2 or 3, and then I sent them to you, and then you wind up choosing Pat, which was incredible change. What did you expect when you first went to counseling? Like, what were your assumptions before you went? Because, you know, you watch the movies, you do that. Some people listen to this have never been to counseling before.
Yeah. Man. Well, nervous like anyone else. When I went in there, I was like, I'm going to be learning about something about myself that I don't even know yet. And I'm scared as what that might be. And I'm also really scared as to what would be for me to do to make myself better. Like, what work would be behind that? So it's like, I want to change, but how much work is it going to be? But if I don't change, then I'm going to go down the same path I've been going on, and then it's just not going to be good whatsoever. So it's like a crossroads. So it's like, okay, what am I about to do in here, Pat? What is it that you have lined up for me? And it was the complete opposite. There was a little bit of homework, yes, but at the end of the day, it was more talking about God's sovereignty and how much he's already done for us and how much he loves us. And I was just like, and I had known that already, or at least I thought I had known that. It was beat in my head. But going back to your question, I was scared as to what it would cost of me. I was selfish. It's like, screw this. I just want to just be my path, be my ways, It's easy.
Mm.
I don't have to go change myself. I don't have to look at myself in the mirror and realize like, oh, you're a little blemish. There's a little bit of work that needs to be done, But yeah, I was definitely very prideful because I pretty reserved, pretty quiet, as you know. I don't like talking about my feelings about myself. And part of that is trauma, but also it's pride. It's admitting the fact that there's something wrong with me, and to admit that to everyone else, saying, hey, I'm struggling. I'm trying to go through this. Give me some time. Please be gracious with me. That right there is like, ugh, just don't like that. It's like, I want to be the rock. I want to be the foundation. I want to be someone that always leans on, but that's not the case whatsoever. And to expect that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of pride going in there.
Yeah, because it's like if you dive into it, like what you said, like Christ is our foundation. He is our rock. We actually have to lean on him. Mm-hmm. I think you learned that in counseling. Me and you talked about this Definitely. A lot.
Yep.
That I kept basically really pushing and encouraging you as you're going through Pat. And you could tell that you were mentally exhausted the first couple of weeks because, I mean, you're talking about some deep stuff. And I think the theme that we got was, Ben, you just got to try.
Yes.
You just have to try. That's all you have to do. Take it day by day, 1% better every day. Just try and don't make it about yourself.
Yep. Yes. No, I remember that. And I remember too, when you sat in this room doing chalkboard stuff, it was actually you that eventually pushed me to like spill everything to Pat. Like I was telling him, but I wasn't giving him details.
I remember that.
Yeah. And so that's kind of like gave me, I guess, kind of like that realization and just telling that to Pat and everything. Cause again, I was still holding on to my pride. It's like, no, Pat, everything's fine. I've told you this before, and I'm sure I've shared it on the podcast before. It's just like what I went through was not that bad. It was fine. Yeah. Dad wasn't the best dad, but he wasn't that bad. And turns out it actually was pretty bad. But to just hold that in and be like, no, I'm good. It wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it's very natural in general, just for everyone. I mean, you talked about this last time that, or probably last week, I think, that the person who is getting the abused, it naturally will also protect the abuser.
Yes.
Especially if it's a close relative. It's like, it wasn't really that bad. Or, they really didn't mean it that way. Well, it's like, regardless of what their intent was, like, yes, intent matters, but this is what's happening.
Yes.
And that's tough.
It is. To admit that was still tough.
Yeah, I remember. I totally forgot about that since you brought it up. I'm like, Ben, you got to get more details, dude.
Yep.
And so you're starting to realize that too, that you skip out a lot of the details just to get to the point. And partially is, like you said, because pride and laziness. But part of it is just you have to learn that skill.
Yep. Yeah, I would say, learning that skill and protection too. And also too, I don't want to get in the weeds of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I noticed that even just with my relationship with my friends and with even some clients out here, just trying to keep it like you can come here, but just here, but not letting him cross that boundary. When I was like, as we were going through boundaries and stuff, I was putting up boundaries, which they were good, but I was also putting up a lot of walls as well. Or I've had walls that I kept up and I'm looking at, I'm like, oh, that's not a boundary, that's a wall. So I need to do that. So I'm noticing getting more details with certain things because one, it helps with that healing process and just to share with your brother in Christ. But also two, people, can help.
Yep.
They can help you realize like again, like as I'm telling my story with my dad more and more, it's just like, even with the elders at church and all that stuff, it's like, man, that is really bad. So then it's also giving me, I was like, oh, okay, it was that bad. So maybe I'm not that crazy. Maybe the things that I did go through were actually really that bad. And it's also starting to tell myself the truth too, because I kept perpetually lying to myself. And just, again, things are okay. I'm okay. But I was not okay.
Yeah.
I was perpetually lying. I was anxious. I wasn't being my true, authentic self. And when I tried to be my true, authentic self, it was just kind of like, oh, well, I can't really do that around this person because again, pride, or I don't trust them, or I can trust them, but I'm scared to let them know. Will they use it against me? Or just laziness. Just like, and once I do this in front of this person, then not to put a facade, but I have to just keep this up and all that stuff. And that's just exhausting. And I'm an introvert. I don't like talking I enjoy talking to people, but I would rather just keep it back, keep it chill.
Yeah, that is true.
And so kind of switching that has been an adjustment for sure.
Yeah, but last year we talked about your first year of marriage.
Yes.
Now, since you've been to counseling, wait, before we get to that, I think this is really important. What type of, how would you tell people, like, even though you suffered injustice,
Mm-hmm.
it's important to move on, to eventually forgive that person and not to continue to blame them and not change yourself.
Yep.
So like, how would you go about that? Because a lot of people will say, well, it's because, my mom, but yet they don't put the work in, or because my dad, or it's because my best friend, or,
I think this is one time where my pride was actually good. Oh man, I'm not going to let my dad make this become of me for the rest of my 10, 30, 50 plus years. So I know there's a hint of that, but for the actual legitimacy, it sucks. I hear you. There are people out there that have it so much worse than me.
Oh, yeah.
And that was kind of one thing too, as a healing process. What I went through sucked. I wouldn't wish that upon anyone else, but there are some people out there that have it worse than me, and they are doing better. They're doing tremendously. They went through horrific circumstances, and they're doing just fine. And they're not making it all about themselves. They're not making it about, well, because of this, I am this. It's like, yes, that is a circumstance that's happened, but don't let it identify you, because that's your identification. Your identification is in Christ. Because if you make this bad memory, this bad thing, this bad season in your life hit you for the rest of your life, it's miserable. And I've gone through that. I had so much bitterness and anger towards my father for years. Even after I forgave him, I just like, anytime I'd hear his name or just any memory, I was like, ruin my day. It would ruin my conversations with Kiri. It would ruin just any friendship, my conversation with friendships. Like, oh, how's your dad? And I'm like, oh, that guy.
Yeah.
You just like, and then just kind of just maturing and realizing that that's not what Christ wants of me. That's not my identification. My identity is in Christ. If that is true and my identity is in Christ, then be more like Christ. Forgive. Don't forget. Realize the stumbling blocks that were laid before you and that they suck and that they hurt, but they are not what's going to define the rest of your journey. And there are times where they come back and they hurt, but you just got to keep moving forward and to seek help, counseling, having someone you can actually share that with. Because at the end of the day, maybe you just need your feelings validated and realizing that, hey, this truly sucks, what you went through. And you might be an angry person right now in the season, but that's not going to be forever. I pray it's not. And if it is, then you're just going to be just as bad as them that put you in that situation. And we all talk about we never want to be like our parents. You will be like your parent. It's just what can you do with that? Because you've grew up with it. You know the games they play. You know the ins and outs. So you'll do it again. And it's just your default because you've just been so exposed to it for how many years of your life you've been with your parents. It's hard though because it's your default. It's easy to go back to. It's so easy to go back and say, well, the reason why I lie is because my dad was this. The reason why I'm such an angry person is because it's so easy to put the blame on someone else. Someone else is a scapegoat. But realizing that that's not true and realizing that, yep, it sucks. You just got to move forward. Trust in Christ and just pray and realize, again, they'll come back. It comes back. But when it does come back, where do you go to? Where do you look to?
Yeah, that's good. Last time I talked to you about roughly in your first year of marriage. Now it's been passed over 2.5 years.
Yep.
It'll be 3 years soon.
August 5th.
August 5th.
Yeah.
Gary, give him some brownie points.
Yeah.
August 5th. And so how has that dynamic changed with your wife now from going to counseling and really feeling like you have some good boundaries up instead of walls?
Yes. So that was one of like the biggest changes I've noticed, because during that time last year, like our first year of marriage and all that stuff, I was lying. I was doing all these things. Counseling, kind of going through that, putting in that work, made me realize that I'm the stronger vessel, and that Christ has given me and has blessed me with that ability to be that stronger vessel. It's time to act like it. Even though when times are tough, you got to be that. And realizing too that I am in a leadership position. And that was one of the really hard things to realize and actually come to terms with, because everyone can't assume that I'm a leader. They'll just follow me willy-nilly. It's not that simple, especially with your wife. Yes, she's married with you and you're in a covenant together. But if you're not leading her, she has so much anxiety. She loves you, but it's also like, what's going on? Like, what's going to happen in the next couple months, years, all that stuff. And all that too, but also she's leaning on you because you are the stronger vessel and she's the weaker vessel. And we are called to provide and protect our wives. So I remember specifically one night, it was a Sunday night. I was reading one of the books that Pat had told me to read. It was Being Fathered by God by John Eldredge. I was reading that, and then it was so hard to read. And it was just like going through some tough questions. And I remember just sitting there and I just put it aside and I started crying. And then that crying turned to weeping. I don't think I had the last time I wept was years, and truly wept. And my wife comes over and she doesn't say anything. She's loving on me and everything. And I eventually speak up and I say, I don't want to do this. I don't want to become the leader that God wants me to be. I don't want to become the man God wants me to be. It's hard. It's not easy. There's a lot to do, a lot to think about, a lot to process. You're relying so heavily on me, but then what am I like? Where else am I supposed to? And it's just like blah blah blah. I was just spiraling, all that stuff, and it's just like I'm kind of at a crossroads. It's like either A, I go back down the path I originally was doing, which was not good, or B, I put in the work and become the leader I need to be. But it was so hard. It was my spirit wanted to go one way, my flesh wanted to go the other way. And it was just this true separation. And I wept and wept and wept. And eventually just praying, I was like, okay, I come to terms with this. This is hard, but I can do it. God has put me here in this position for a reason. He's allowed me to marry you and put you in my life for a reason. He's given me these stewardships for a reason. So there's something I need to be doing with this, and I need to be leading you better. And then I remember turning to her and saying, please be patient with me. I will screw up again, and I will try to step up, and I will become a better leader. I will continue going to counseling, seeking help when I need help, and I will just follow and lead you the way God wanted me to. Now, I would love to say that it was just all sunshine and rainbows right then and there. It was not. It's a lot of work, still to this day. But with that, it has come to us a lot intimate in our marriage, in a sense to where we're kind of more fitting in our more biblical roles, I would say, where protector and provider, and my wife's the helper and nurturer. I've also noticed too, it has helped her tremendously with her anxiety as well. It's not that I have a plan and everything we're going towards. Even if we do fail towards the plan that we're going toward, it's just that we have a plan. It's just that we are we're striving towards something. And just her knowing that and being alongside me saying, hey, this is what I kind of want to do. This is what we are doing this. We're going to do this, this, and this. What are your thoughts? And letting her in that conversation She might agree with me. She may not agree with me. But so far, she's been agreeing with me. So, which is telling me, okay, that's great. But I've also told her this, I want you to challenge my leadership to make sure that it's not a dictatorship. So there's been a few times she has challenged me, which has actually been really cool, where I had to step up even more. But I would say after counseling and everything, I've, by the grace of God, starting to lead her better. And with that, with me leading her, she's following me better, which makes me want to lead her even more. Because now she's now she's like looking up to me and so dependent on me. It's just like, okay, now I really have to keep pushing, keep striving towards Christ. It has helped her as well with anxiety, which is really interesting. She has become, what's the word? What would be a good word to say this? Sassy. She's a lot more sassier, which tells me that she's more comfortable. And to go through that moment with her where I truly wept in front of her, because I had not wept. I've cried in front of my wife, but I had not wept like that, and just really like battling with flesh and spirit. That right there just made her just like realize like, oh man, this is hard for him, but he's still going to do it, even though he says he doesn't want to do it, but he's still going to try to do it. That has helped me in so many tremendous ways as well, which has just been awesome. I mean, even just like tonight, she just brought me dinner tonight before this podcast, just because she knew I told her, I'm having a long day today. I'm tired. I need some help, please. And so she did that for me. And she came here, she sat here for me for 20, 30 minutes, talking to her, telling her some of the thoughts going through my brain about the podcast and stuff. She's like, oh, you'll be all right. You'll be fine. So that right there has just been really encouraging and loving. So going from the role of being a passive husband to an active husband has been a hard one, but it's been a blessing. And with that, just seeing how much our marriage has grown more intimately, not just with each other, but with Christ as well. And not only that too, but I've noticed she'll even come up and say like, hey, recently one of our conversations, like, hey, we need to do more things spiritually together, which I thought was really cool as well. Because now that tells me that she's hungry for it, and she's coming up with ideas and bringing them to me as well, which is really cool because she's never done that before. So like more prayer time, more times in Bible study, which has been really cool too. And so that tells me where I need to be working on as well. So I caught that and noticed that. And so now we're implementing a plan for that too.
It's really interesting just hearing you in the transformation, and like Jesus wept.
Yep.
And it's like you were finally actually not only being honest with your wife, but with yourself.
Yep.
And then your heart, like literally when I'm listening to you, your heart is literally turning towards Christ, not towards yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you were like, man, I can't do this. I can't. Yeah, you can't do this on your own. You can't lead your wife. Like, this is hard. Yeah. But like, well, Christ did this for me. He died for me. Like, he rose for me. Mm. He put me in this place. He gave me this wife. It started slowly going outward. Your heart started, going outward, which was cool because a lot of people, when they struggle, their heart is turned inward.
Yep.
And so I've noticed that just talking with a lot of podcast guests, with my own insecurities and struggles, I'm starting to realize that's a common theme. When you reminisce on a problem and you constantly think about it, you actually start to dive down that tunnel. And it's harder said than done. You got to take every thought captive.
Yep.
But it's a real thing. Like if you think about the problem instead of the remedy of the problem, you will go down a dark path. Mm-hmm. So it's really interesting. Did you notice that?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, I did. Because before, old me would have gone to myself easily. I mean, just like, man. Or I could hear the whispers of my dad, oh, just man up. You'll be all right. If you don't do this, you're not going to be a good enough man. You're not going to be a good enough husband. Just come on. This is baby stuff. What you come on. What are you doing? And it's like, if you don't do this, and then this will happen and all that stuff. So when we're like guilt tripping, but yeah, getting out from yourself is kind of one of the biggest things I've learned through counseling and just through these seasons and all that stuff. Is just realizing, you can't do it alone. You need Christ, and realize where you're at now is not because of you, it's because of Christ. Yes, you had a little bit of role in it, but at the end of the day, Christ gives you the air that you breathe. He gives you all this, and without him, where would you be? Nowhere. I mean,
Yeah.
and so your thought about catching every thought captive, like that's been hard too. That was another thing I've been learning as well. Is anything that comes into your mind, it's like, well, why did I think that? I've never thought that. Usually, again, it's just whatever, just let it fly through. Because again, it's easy, but catching is like, whoa. Why did I think this thought towards my wife? She came to me with a complaint. Why am I coming to her with so much anger towards her? And it's a complaint that she's had before, and it never bothered me before. So why is it bothering me now? And then, or it's like, oh Lord, man, I really just don't like deserve this job or anything. It's just like, no, you don't deserve it, but he gave it to you, so enjoy it. We don't deserve a lot of things, but God still graciously gives it to us. And so it's catching that, and then instead of sitting there, it's like, yeah, or staying in monologue, just like, yeah, I really don't deserve this job. I really don't deserve this wife. I really just don't deserve the health that I have. I really just don't deserve anything. And you just and then you're just sitting there and you fall into despair. And that's where Satan wants you. It's easy. And then you go into self-pity, and then you start thinking about the things you could do to make yourself feel validated to have those things. But I don't even know what that might look like for some people. I know for me, it was lying to myself and just saying, oh, yeah, you're good. It's fine. It's because of this. It's because of that. It's like, you suffered for this, so therefore you deserve that. Or you've gone through this much suffering, so you should have this. You had a really bad relationship with your dad, so you deserve this relationship with your wife. It's like, yeah, no. That doesn't work.
It's crazy that you brought that up about being in monologue. And the Christ calls you to be in dialogue with him.
Yep.
And so it's like you said, if your heart is turned yourself, and you're listening to those thoughts that are lies of like, you'd be less than a man or all these things, like you're really talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I always tell people, like, you ever seen a person down the street that's considered crazy and they're talking to themselves? It looks crazy. Well, when you do it in your head, that's what you look like walking down the side of the road.
Yep.
So I always try to give people that analogy. Man, that's really cool about how much you've grown with counseling. I think the next one I wanted to dive into is you've been leading discipleship groups more. How has that leadership skill feel? And then does it live up to what I always have said and what people have told me, that once you start leading a discipleship group, you actually start learning triple the amount or like tenfold the amount?
Yes. Man. Being in that position, yeah. It was definitely something I did not expect. People in those leadership positions make it look so easy. And when I first did it, I had no idea what I was doing. I was not prepared. I wasn't doing things that I should have been doing. And that got me into some trouble in the beginning as well. And so noticing how much I need to prepare in order to have these people depend on me and expect certain circumstances in that. It's one thing. And learning, yes, 3 times as much as I thought I would be compared to sitting, because now I have to actually go through the material, digest it, read up in this book, in the Bible, what is the context behind this verse, because people like to cherry pick verses, and which is, you need to know the context behind that. So that really was just like, oh man, there's a lot more work in that. And it's also looking around, saying like, okay, what are some of the convictions I'm feeling in this, and displaying that in front of the discipleship group too. Because at the time, it was, in my mind, it was like, got to just get here to here, get through this material and everything, which is fine at times, but it's also like, what is it, as you're reading through this, what is God wanting you to say towards these men? What is it that is on your heart that they may not even experience, but what's just on your heart, so you can share with them, so you guys can so you can wrestle with it as well. Just because you're leading it and teaching it doesn't mean you know everything. It just means you have to be a bit more prepared, and you're going to be the one that has to just lead in the group in that, and then just make sure you keep the culture the way you want it to be. And it's been really good and encouraging as well. I've had lunch with one of our discipleship guys, and he actually brought up the fact that he wanted me to speak even more during it and share my opinion even more, which was really encouraging because, again, it goes down that pity hole. It's like, I just don't want to, I don't want them to know what my thoughts are. I don't want to have to go through this certain thing that I'm struggling with because, again, so that was really encouraging. Realizing that not only do you have to lead and teach these people, but you have to know these people. Know them not just by their names and what they like and don't like, but know like certain struggles that they're going with, what is their lens in which they read in this context? What is certain things that they lean towards, being more codependent, more narcissistic? Are they leaning more towards like, I have to do a checklist of things to get into heaven, or I'm good and God saved me, I'm just going to chill and just keep sinning and just keep going. So it's learning that and seeing where they're at right now in their journey, in their faith. Some might be really intelligent, super smart and down their path. Some might just be beginning. So you have to just know them and get to build those relationships with them so you can figure out how you can better orient the material towards them. So that was another thing I didn't really know as well, which makes sense though, because a leader can't lead his people if he doesn't know them. Yeah. And that's kind of the things too, just even with adapting that towards my wife as well. I mean, yes, I have a lot of deeper relationship with her through just being married and everything, but there's been some things I'm still learning. It's like, oh, you think that way because of this and all that stuff, or her growing up in a Catholic background and all that stuff. So that's a really big thing I'm starting to learn too, as being a leader in that group. And yeah,
you said something really profound that just struck me. You said that you can't lead your people if you don't know them.
Mm-hmm.
And Christ knows us completely because he's made us. He knows every count of hair on your head.
Yep.
And I was like, man, that is so true. Like, that's why it's so important for us and people who are listening, who are believers, to like, yeah, you're in that position because Christ has put you in that position.
Mm-hmm.
And it might get worse. Heck, you might even die depending on if you're in a different country, but he put you in that position for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And he knows you. He gave you your gifts. And so that's really powerful to know your people and to our clients here at ID Fitness. The deeper we get to know them, our exercise selection changes. If we have a client here who is always in a rush, has a lot of anxiety, well, the last thing they need to do is do a lot of HIIT training and hard, intense lifting, because that's how they're living their life anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's remarkable. Kind of just knowing your people, knowing your clients. That really struck me that you said that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would love to say I got that, but no, that was from the book I'm reading.
Now, is this the book that you read, that you brought up by Father? What was it called?
So that was Fathered by God by John Eldridge.
Is that where you got it from, or no?
It's not. No.
Okay. What's the book you're reading now?
The 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership by John C. Maxwell.
Okay.
And so that was one of like the things. It talks a lot about leadership. But that was one of the things that really struck with me. It's knowing your people. You can't say, let's go this direction when they themselves don't know you and you don't know them. Because how can you say we're going to go here when you don't know their struggles? You don't know what. I mean, like, as simple as like this, like, we're going to go here at this restaurant. Well, they may not like that certain food at that restaurant. They may not like Mexican. They won't want burgers, but you're taking them here. So they're not really going to follow you there and all that stuff. And just because you're in a higher authoritarian position, you could be a preacher, an elder at a church. You could be a CEO at your company. Just because you have that title doesn't mean you're a leader and they're going to follow you. They'll only follow you for numerous things, but one of the things was you got to know your people. And they got to know you. You got to build trust with them. You got to build rapport with them. You got to not only that, but also have a vision that you're like, hey, I want to go down this vision. This is what I want to do. And your people may not want to follow you in that vision. So either A, change the vision, or B, know your people and know what they want to do. It's just like, oh, okay, so my vision, and then my vision is this, but their vision is that. So maybe we can do something like this. Or you get to know your people enough to where they're like, actually, let's do their idea. Let's do their vision. So that was my big key takeaway from that book was knowing your people.
Knowing your people. And it's interesting you say that too, because what interested you into reading that book? Like, where were you at? Why did you pick that specific book? Like, what stood out?
So what that book stood out to me was it was a broad overview of leadership. And as I'm gaining more leadership roles and everything with here at ID Fitness, with discipleship with my wife, it's just like, okay, I don't really know how to be a leader. I don't really know how do you lead. So let me just talk to some people, and everyone has their own ideas of leadership. It's like, okay, well, how can I view this in a more biblical Christian lens as well? So John C. Maxwell wrote this, and it's a very broad overview. It's 21 laws, which is going through like anything and everything, like trust, rapport, having a vision, being able. You can only be a leader if you yourself are leading yourself, and it's just this broad overview, and it's just kind of like, okay, I'm doing kind of this. I'm definitely not doing that. It's like, oh, I know this. So that's kind of what led me to that, because I didn't really have an idea of what leadership is, what it entailed. Because leadership in my mind growing up was just, again, you're in this position, we're going this way, come follow me. And it's like, okay, we'll follow you, like mindless drones. And it's not like that whatsoever. And so that's what really drew me to that book, because it's a big, broad overview. It's within a biblical lens. He uses a lot of stories within it too, about CEOs, about sports coaches and their basketball teams, and using, as he describes the law, as like how it's implemented in that, so it's more easier to visualize as to why that is. And he doesn't really give you like anything like, if you want, do this to do that. It's just more like, this is kind of how it's done, and it is how these people have done it. That's it. And it's just like, oh, so maybe I should try to build a relationship with the people I'm working with. Maybe I should know what their thoughts are, what their ideas are. Oh, I'm coming into a new leadership position, but everyone's following this guy for some reason. He's beneath me. Why is that? Let me get to know this guy. Why is everyone following him? Oh, it's because he's been here for 20 plus years. He's always on here before everyone else. Everyone knows him. Everyone loves him. Everyone knows they can trust him and they can lean on him. It's like, oh, okay. So maybe I should start doing that, so that way people can start following me as well. And then it's also knowing that everyone's a leader, and it's just knowing where you're at and knowing what you need to work on, and that in order for you to scale and to really grow into your vision, as more for like entrepreneurs and CEOs, even husbands as well, is there's a certain scale you're on, and no matter how much work you put in, no matter how much red face, you're working 10, 20 hours a day, something like that, just crazy ludicrous, nothing will grow if you cannot lead people, because you are one person. You cannot do everything. So you need to let go of some of your roles and responsibilities and delegate it to other people, and then actually let them do it as well. So that way you can grow and can do that. That's one of the things too I'm starting to learn with my wife, is just like, I am the leader, but I can give her a few things to take care of as well. And she can come up to me and we can discuss them. I don't have to be so dogmatic to where it's like, nope, only I can talk about financials. Only I can talk about this conversation, or only Kiri can do this. So it's like, hey, like for instance, like, hey, Kiri, we're working on a financial plan. I'm going to work on the long-term financial plan. How about you work on the short-term financial plan, and you and I will collaborate? Because before, in my mind, I was going to do both. And I'm like, no, she brought up the short-term plan, financial plan. Why not just have her do it and then just talk to her? So that's another thing too, is delegating and leading those people and letting them actually go. Because there's some leaders, and they do this with their kids, they do this with their wives, they do this with employees. Hey, take care of this, and they're watching them the whole time. They don't want to do that, and it's a very hard thing to adjust, because they will fail, and they're not going to do it to the expectation you want it to at all. But that's, if you communicate what it is you want to do, and then give them grace and realize that they will fail, they will grow into a really incredible leader as well. And if you give them that trust, and you just continue just to build rapport and keep growing and growing, they'll follow you even more. You give them a little bit more responsibility, and then you have multiple leaders around you, and you're kind of like CEO with a whole bunch of managers in your household or anywhere else. Really, it's just crazy to think about that everyone can be a leader, and everyone's got leaderships and skills in their own areas, and that's okay. And that's where you get other people. I'm really good at the tech stuff, and CJ's really good with like the ideas and all that stuff. And so that's fine. It's just knowing where you're at and then just coming together when that time comes.
Yeah, it's really fascinating as you continue, like you said. That really stuck out to me was allowing people to fail. That's how you learn.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been an entrepreneur and got an opportunity to work with different people, different personality types, different employees, and you're going to lose money if you're a business owner.
Yeah.
And you did too as a business owner. I did too. Right. But that's just part of it.
Yep.
Now, a lot of things have changed since we talked about your fitness journey. Because, I mean, you did basically work with two different coaches who I would say arguably best in the world, and then paid a lot of money to work with them. And partly it's good to learn and to see different ideas. What happened to your bodybuilding phase, and how'd you lose its drive?
Yeah. So my original plan for bodybuilding and everything is because all my life I was a skinny kid. I was told I was skinny by my dad. I was told I was skinny by my granddad. And it was just like, well, if I'm going to be a man, if I'm going to be big and strong, I need to start working out. So I sought myself in the bodybuilding world because, well, where else can you gain mass in the bodybuilding world? So I did that. I had dreams, or I thought like, oh yeah, I'll do competitions and everything like that. But those competitions were for my pride. They were for me. And as I was starting to go into counseling and everything like that, I started to realize I was more feeling a hole in my heart that was being filled by something else. I was like, bodybuilding is gonna make me feel better. I'm gonna look good. I'm gonna be super lean. I'm gonna be on stage. People are gonna look at me, and I'm gonna look great and all that stuff. And as I was going through counseling with Pat and everything, it was just like, man, this bodybuilding thing is really shallow. It's fun to do. It's enjoyable, but this isn't my identity. And really, if I'm going to keep doing this, it needs to be doing it for Christ, and just not for my own arrogance and pride, so that I can just say like I'm the big dog and all that stuff. So I've started noticing in that time when I was with Pat Ward, I really just didn't care for it anymore. I started to hate it, which was really weird. I still worked with Pat Davidson at that time, and I was still going on cycles where I was getting really big and really lean and all that stuff, but it wasn't fun. I was starting to dread it. And as I was still like posing stuff, I was like, this isn't me. This isn't really what I thought I would want to be. This isn't really what I thought Ben would become. And so it slowly just kind of like a fire without any fuel just kind of went away. And I've been praying about it, and I've been like wondering, like, Lord, I spent so much time, so much money in this. I've gained so much weight. I have cut and lost so much weight. Why don't I want to do this anymore? I'm really kind of frustrated because I thought this would be something I'd really enjoy to do. I haven't really gotten that answer yet. I may not ever will, but I've tried. And after I met with Pat Ward, still worked with Pat Davidson for a couple more months. And then eventually it was just like, hey, Pat, I'm not enjoying this anymore. I don't really want to, this isn't really what I want to do anymore. And that was pretty much it there, which is still weird to me because I'm working with a woman right now who is going in, or we were working towards her wellness competition, everything like that. And I was so excited for her. I was like, yes, this is going to be awesome. I was more fired up for her show than I was for myself in such a long time. And I was like, why is it that? Why am I not fired up for myself and wanting to do that? Why? And so praying, and then I think it was just the Lord had wanted me to go down a different path. And I think it's probably with the training I'm going through now. I guess we'll talk about it a little bit later, but with my coaching style and everything changed. But I wish I could give a firmer answer in that. But right now, it just kind of just fizzled out. I don't know. Was it burnout? Could have been. I've thought about wanting to do it again, but it hasn't struck me as it once did before, especially how much I'm fired up for this girl I'm training now. So.
Yeah, it's interesting as your identity becomes stronger in Christ. The same things that once attracted you are no longer attractable.
Mm-hmm.
And you start to get down to the root of why you're doing it. And once you realize why you're doing it and what it was tied to, you're like, man, I was just trying to be significant.
Yep.
When I'm already significant in Christ's eyes because of what he's done for us.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's very interesting that you notice that and the fuel and the fire. And it's been really cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe one day. I've been praying about it still. And I won't get fat, that's for sure. I can't do that.
So now, how has your coaching style evolved? Obviously, you talked a little bit about, getting to know clients more, letting them know more of you. And so that way you can kind of build a deeper relationship. But now, since you've had such strong influences like Pat and Stan, now you're switching to, we are switching to PRI and Bill Hartman's stuff. What's inspiring you to do it? Do you like the way we're going down it? Kind of just, start us off.
I love it. So I'm fired up about this as I was for bodybuilding, which is weird. And so that's kind of my fire for bodybuilding went from there to now doing Bill Hartman's and PRI stuff. So it has been awesome. It's kind of been going something more down the lines I kind of want to do because I explained this before in the podcast. I wanted to go into physical therapy for a time being, but didn't really want to because, again, people who really didn't want to be there. It was an environment that didn't really feel like I belonged there. So with the new PRI stuff and Bill Hartman, it's learning specific movements that these people are struggling with in regards to certain biomechanics, and then it's seeing that limitation, implementing that, getting them out of pain, but also keeping them strong to where they can still squat, deadlift heavy, and just continue to move better. And so that's been really cool, and getting more into the nitty gritty of certain biomechanics and stuff. Well, the reason why this is because of that. And it's just learning more and more of how the human body is. It's got me more excited because that's kind of what got me fired up was A&P and all that stuff for anatomy, physiology.
Yeah.
And so I love the direction we're going. I think it's been really cool seeing how clients are getting a lot better. I had one woman tonight. I've been seeing her for 30 minutes now. For about 3 weeks now. And she had significant pain on the right side of her leg where her kneecap was. Couldn't stand or walk for more than 10 minutes without excruciating pain where she had to sit down. And she did the most chores she's ever done ever since we worked together today. And she only had minimal pain. And as she's coming in, her mood has changed. The way she carries herself has changed. Her conversations have changed. And you can just tell on her face that she's more relieved, more relaxed. So it's been really cool to watch too. So not only are we helping them physically, but also it's just going into their mentally and even at times spiritually as well.
Yeah.
I would say that what we're doing is kind of more what we need to be doing. Because I know past 4 or 5 years, it's kind of been like figuring out, what are we doing? Do we go online? Do we do more of this? Do we do more of that? And this feels more natural. I don't know if you feel the same way, but it feels like this is kind of what God has called us to do. Because not only are we helping people get out of pain, but we're now on the floor a lot more with one-on-one clients. We're building relationships with them, becoming closer to them, being able to share the word with them and tell them our testimonies and everything, and just building a really wonderful community here. And you can just tell just from the clients we had 2 years ago to this year how different it is. And it's really cool to see. We have clients that are uplifting each other and helping each other out. They're even meeting each other like outside of the gym and just having lunch together. Maybe we had one client he's recently moved up north, and him and one of my morning clients, they would always talk together. And man, they were both so sad to see him go and everything, but they had got lunch together. They hung out before he left, which is interesting. I mean, you don't really see that often with a gym, except for maybe just the clicky group. But we got people mingling from all ages and stuff like that. And I feel like it's just, again, I'll say it again, it just feels natural. It feels like what we need to be doing. And so I think that's what makes me so much more fired up for it. It's like, this right here makes sense. This right here is what God is calling me to do. Like talking to these people, getting to know them, getting to actually know them, and seeing how they tick and what can I do here at the gym to help encourage them and influence them, but hopefully even share the gospel with them. And a lot of times too, a lot of people here we have are Christians as well. Some are not. But even then, some of the people who are not Christians are very more than open to hear our testimonies and stuff like too. I mean, we had a conversation with one woman. We were here for 2-3 hours talking about it. And that was so cool to see and just talk with her about it. And we were just talking. It wasn't just like convert. It was just like, we were just talking about it. And so that was really cool to see too. Cause I mean, I've never really had an opportunity to do that at all before with anyone that I can think of.
Yeah. And most people, and from my experience, like what you said, that they change because of the fruits you're producing. In other words, are you practicing what you're preaching?
Yep.
Like if you show grace and love and compassion towards people, and it's from the Spirit, like watch mountains move. Like it is remarkable. Goes back to what your book said,
Yep.
Are you leading yourself through the biblical worldview?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not, then it's going to be really frustrating because you're going to want people to do what you want them to do, but yet you yourself is not doing it. So you become a hypocrite right away.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what a lot of people get a bad rap for. I remember growing up all my life, my parents would say this, do as I say, not as I do. I'm sure everyone has heard that. And it's just like, you roll your eyes. It's like, okay, so the rules pertain to me, but they don't pertain to you. I mean, that right there, you're just like, well, whatever. Why would I even listen to you? So, I mean, of course, you got to change yourself if you want to lead others.
Mm-hmm.
And as hard as it is, if you want to move mountains, got to start with yourself.
You ain't kidding. And I think, too, we have to be careful. Like when we say start with yourself, that means seeking Christ of what he's called you to do.
Yes.
Because a lot of people think, well, I just need to find it within myself. As Christians, like, no.
That goes back to what we said earlier. If you start going self-reflecting and you just start seeing all the bad stuff, because there is a lot of bad.
Or even good stuff that you're doing.
Yeah, because even our good stuff is not that good.
Yeah, because there's people who struggle the reverse.
Yep.
They struggle with, I really don't give God enough credit, right? They lean more towards legalism,
Yep.
like rule based, like look what I've done, and that's just as deadly as leading to antinomianism, which is God died for me. I can do whatever, and those are two pitfalls you go down that are not good.
Yep. Yeah, because you can't. Yeah, because you can't lead someone if you're like, well, I just do this. Well, I just do that. Why don't you just do this? That's just gonna push them away from you so fast. They're gonna be like, no, you're this. You think you this wonderful
Yep.
figure. I'm gonna get away from you, and it shuts people off very quickly.
Talk about the importance of consistency in collecting data and coaching, and how that helps you get better advice.
Man, consistency is key. People hear that all the time, but it's true. This morning, I had a couple say, man, if only I didn't, like, we were just doing some step ups and stuff like that. And they were talking about how hard it was. But when they did it 5 years ago, it was so easy. And they were just like, if only I was consistent with this, if only I just kept doing with it. And so whatever you can do, whatever you can spare, just do it and just stay consistent with it, because that's the long game. It's a long game. It's not a short game. It's a long game. And with being consistent and then collecting data is huge, because once you're consistent, you can see trends. And when you see trends, you can then make adjustments based off those trends. And so collecting data as a coach is huge, because it tells me you're here and now we're going here, but I want us to go here. So what we're doing here, like with nutrition, you're currently eating zero protein, barely any protein. Let's just start with, and you've been eating like this for the past 6 weeks or however long. Let's increase our protein just a little bit, because I have that data, and then you're consistent with that. We can build and build and build and build. So data is key, is so important, because if you don't have any data, if you don't have any plan, then you're just running around with your head cut off, and you're going to be even more frustrated. You're going to be, I tried this, it didn't work. I tried that, it didn't work. I've tried everything. We hear that all the time. I tried everything. It doesn't work with me. It's like, well, have you been tracking your weight numbers, and have you been tracking your food? No. It's like, okay, well, let's start there. See where you're at, and then we'll make adjustments based off that, and then we'll just be consistent with that, keep building. So important. I mean, we tell people all the time, 2 to 3 times a week for 30 to 45 minutes. You do that every week, you're set. You're so much better than 90% of the population. And that's an hour. If you do 2 times a week for 30 minutes, that's an hour out of the week. You can spare an hour for your whole week. And it will make so many things better and easier for your life if you just do that. Because we've seen it on both ends. We have couples who are older who have been consistent with exercise most of their lives, and then they're in their 80s, late 70s, and they're going on trips still. And then we have some clients here who are younger than them that are in their 50s and stuff like that. And they can't even walk. They can barely move, barely pick up anything, get out of breath quickly. So it's just being consistent with it and just watching the data and going from there.
Yeah. And it's interesting too. It's really hard to give feedback and to divert the program or the nutrition protocol when we don't have enough data to see if it actually even works.
Yes.
And it's like that's the challenge for me, is when I'm working with the client, I'm like, well, did you do these exercises? Even if they don't think it's going to work, by them just doing it, and let's say it didn't work, that helps me give feedback to be like, okay, they were right. This doesn't work.
Yeah. I've noticed too, my conversations change as well with certain clients when we're assessing on the table, and it's just going through stuff, certain exercises. And I remember saying, it's like, if it doesn't work, tell me. It won't hurt my feelings.
Yeah.
Because if anything, it's going to help me narrow it down further. Because there are exercises that will work for me, but they won't work for you. And for other people, it's the same thing. So a lot of people coming in with that mindset and just realizing, like, hey, we're just going to try this. This is what our data says, that if you do this, it works the majority of the time, but that's not 100% of the time. So yeah, we need that data. We need to know where you're at, and to tell us if you're actually doing it or not, because then that tells us what we need to change.
What do you think, just nutrition wise, some of the fad diets? What are your thoughts on those, just in general? Because I feel like the people that I run into that are really struggling with weight, once again, they're not consistent enough, long enough with a diet to see if it actually works. And if they do, they're constantly jumping diet to diet to diet to diet to diet.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on some of these fad diets that just come out and you're like, what the?
Yeah, just roll my eyes. It's annoying. It's frustrating because it's just another stumbling block for someone who's just starting out. And it's just another thing that it's going to hurt them or disappoint them. I don't like these fad diets. And I that too, but they're just diets. They're usually, for most, at least what I believe, diets are temporary thing, usually 9 times out of 10. It's more of just your relationship with food and how you're eating. So people will get on these certain diets. They make progress, a fad diet. They lose the weight, but they never went to the root as to fixing what that problem might be. Why is it they're eating this way? Or actually building a good relationship with food. Because it's like, okay, if I can do this just for 6 to 8 weeks, I'm going to lose this much weight. And you might will, but then what happens after that? Do you stay in this diet forever? Well, if you do, it could cause a lot of long-term harm if it's a bad diet, like one that's like an elimination diet that takes away either carbs, fat, or protein or whatnot, or takes away fruits and vegetables or anything like that. Because to completely eliminate like those foods can really cause some serious harm in that. I just don't like them. I wish some of them work and they do help some people, but I wish there was more of I wish we had a greater baseline. It's just like, how can we develop a good relationship with food to where I can hit my goals, I can do well, eat well, feel well, and maybe enjoy going off the chain just a little bit. And what's really interesting too is some fad diets actually do give good advice, like no processed foods or ultra processed foods. And when I say ultra processed, I mean like foods that have so many ingredients in them that you don't even, it's like reading a paragraph or something like that. Those are good advice. That's good advice. But it's very hard to do that because they're cheap and they're easy and they taste good.
Yep.
So it's okay. How can we get you away from that food and maybe replace that or just give you better options entirely? Because a lot of people assume that they're eating enough calories or eating a least amount of calories, but they don't track or anything. And so usually most fad diets are eliminating this because it's easy to eliminate said thing, but it's not good all the time.
Yeah.
And then you might feel like crap for weeks and weeks and weeks and not make any progress. And then you try the next one, you get frustrated with that, and you try the next one, you get frustrated with that. And it's just this endless cycle to where you may give up or you just hurt yourself. So I don't like them. I wish there's greater coverage pushing out, which is why we're doing this podcast, as to having a good relationship with food. Because food is good. It's emotional. It affects everything in your being. Once you eat that food, you literally absorb it and it becomes basically a part of you. So be mindful of what you eat and also be mindful of what you do take out and what you do allow in your body. Because there are good things to add and there's some things that do need to come out of your diet. So instead of just going 100% just this way, see how you feel about certain foods. I remember like a food log. It's like I ate this and I was bloated the next day. Or my wife specifically is with gluten and dairy. It's just she'll eat gluten and she'll break out in hives and all that stuff. So building that kind of approach to food and seeing what works for you and what doesn't work, because everyone's different in their diet and their gut. And that's kind of one of the big things I learned from Stan as well too. It's just food is different for everyone. And what, again, like exercises, what might work for you might not work for that person. Yeah, I don't like fat diets, man. Don't like them.
What would you tell people who are listening to this and they're just overwhelmed with food? They're like, I don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm.
What is your baseline for somebody who doesn't even know what a protein, carb, and a fat is?
Mm-hmm.
What would you give them?
Overwhelmed with food. So I would say probably start off with the basics. if you're overwhelmed with food and you have too much being thrown at you, I would definitely start with just eating protein. And when I say protein, I mean like chicken, steak, and ground meats. I would start there. I would start eating just enough of that first. I would say eating enough protein there first, as much as you can maybe handle. And if you have room or you're still hungry, then maybe go to other foods like fruits and vegetables. But you just got to go back down to the basics. I would definitely eliminate anything that's ultra processed, very high sugar. When I say sugar, I mean like refined sugar, like Cokes and candies and all that stuff. So getting rid of that and just going back to whole foods. Whole foods being fruits, vegetables, proteins. You could do white rice. White rice is pretty good. And definitely protein. We cannot stress that enough here. And if you're overwhelmed with protein and you're like, well, how much do I eat? How much do I go for? I would just start with about maybe 4 ounces of lean meat in the beginning, which 4 ounces is about like a deck of playing cards for the majority of meats, like chicken especially. Start there, see how you feel, and then add that same amount for lunch and dinner. And if you really want to get into the nitty gritty of how much protein you should be eating, you can do like the InBody scan we've talked about and measure how much lean muscle mass you have and do about 0.8 grams of protein for that. I don't like body weight for protein because some people can be on the heavier end and has a lot of protein. I had one guy, I remember, was telling me that he was eating 2 grams of protein per pound his body weight, which he was 150. He's eating 300 grams of protein a day. I don't even eat that much. I don't even know how he
That's
did
a lot.
That's a lot. So,
And what do you mean by protein? Because this person doesn't know what protein means.
so you mean like
What is protein?
what is protein? Like the actual like amino acids that,
No.
like, okay.
You're talking to a rookie here.
Oh, chicken.
What else?
Chicken, steak, pork. You could do turkey. You could do bison. You could do fish. You could do protein shakes like whey powder, milk powder, protein shakes. There's plant protein powders. There's pea powders. There's also eggs you can do, of course. I think
that's a great start.
Yeah. Whatever meats you like, just eat more of it.
Just eat more of it. Yeah. And eat whole foods.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, since we're wrapping up, what's next for you personally, professionally, and any other advice you would give to the listeners?
Well, next for me in regards to professionally here at the gym, I signed up for like this Bill Hartman thing. You had to go through this little waiver and all that stuff. And I actually got in. I got an email from them saying like, it's like the coach's corner where you can do like weekly Zoom calls and all that stuff and have free resources for that. So that's going to be cool to see what I can do with that. Help me further professionally with people here, learning more of his model. And of course, I've been writing and researching more for our blog and for our newsletter too. Here at the gym, specifically, I know got like the kids summer program that we've been doing a lot here as well, which is really cool. And then we're hopefully going to work towards with the school later. I would say continue for myself working with the PT that comes here as well, developing a greater relationship with him and knowing how he ticks and everything, because that would be cool. I am now also doing a lot of this podcast stuff too, which is going to be really interesting to see. And it's got some editing software and all that stuff. So I'll also maybe do some little episodes too, which would be cool to see. At home with my wife, we are working on getting a home in the next 2 years, Lord willing. And so continue leading that charge and helping her not be too anxious about it, because it is definitely a big feat to take hold of. but continuing to lead and guide her down that, and not only, but encourage her that we can do it, even if it might be a really daunting task. Discipleship specifically, keep leading on feedback, keep doing what I'm doing and seeing what I am not doing to improve upon. Personally, continue to ask for help, continue to lean on Christ, continue to realize I can't do it alone. Is there anything else in that? Can't think of really anything else. Piece of advice to give to people.
Yeah, just the listeners, what comes off the top of your head that feel like you've been repeating yourself a lot, or that's been on your heart a lot.
Just try. Just try. It'll be hard. But if you don't try, how can you improve? How can you get better? How can you know if it works or doesn't work? So just try and be okay with failing. Be realizing you're not perfect. Because it's better to try and fail than to not try at all.
Yeah. No, I like it. Well, Ben, it was great to do part 2 and to learn what counseling has done professionally, where you're headed, and the coaching style that's changing with ID Fitness. It's been super fun. And it's been awesome on the other side, looking in when you started going to counseling and I started seeing you change, not only with that work, but you also started changing discipleship. You started changing with your wife and just your relationships around you. You're a lot more closer to your clients. And so it's been really cool to see as you go through that experience. You're actually growing confidence through humility, which is pretty much the opposite of what most people think. Yeah. Like the more honest you are with yourself, with others, you can actually start to heal from the wounds. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's from your past, maybe just something you're not dealing with, or maybe some type of traumatic event. But to dive in those with a good support system. Yeah. Don't think you could do it by yourself. And I think that's one thing that I've seen you do over and over. You're asking more for help. If you don't know something, instead of fighting yourself or beating up yourself, you say, all right, obviously I'm built for communion with other believers. So it's like, let's take part of that and be part of that. So it's been really, really cool to see. So I'm excited to see what that course does with Bill Hartman, and then your training, and then also to see if your passion for bodybuilding comes back, or if it doesn't, and then where that will lead you. That'll be pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited too, man. I can't wait to see what happens.
All right, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode for our new season 3, and we'll talk soon.